Hi, everybody. We are here today with Andrea Ramsey. I am so excited to introduce you to her. She is a composer and conductor, and she works all over the world. She's also just an amazing and lovely person, and I'm so excited to chat with her today. Welcome, Andrea.
Hello. I'm happy to be here.
It's so nice. How are you doing, first of all?
It is a roller coaster. I think if you'd asked me yesterday, we get a different answer than today, than to the day before. Some days I feel really fine. If I stay in the day, I feel like it's good. If you think too far down the road, sometimes it can be tough. But on the whole, I feel okay. I feel sort of weirdly built for this as an introvert. That I can sort of stay in and hang with my cat and write music and be just fine. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I woke up this morning in a different mood because there's just a lot going on in the country right now, but that we're processing. That's not great, but not that we're here to talk about that. But that's just been on my brain. But on the whole, I'm doing good, and I'm kind of enjoying. This is the longest stretch in a while that I've been home. So to be able to cook and take long walks and nest a little is kind of nice. So yeah,
it's awesome. So you are composing. I know that's like the number one question with composers.
Yeah.
You must be being incredibly creative. I know personally, it's just hard to kind of focus that energy. But you're managing.
Yes, but it's not at the same pace. Like my creative aqueduct is sputtering a little. Like sometimes I'll have really good couple of days, and then I'll have a couple of days where I just have to break and I can't do anything. Or things that normally don't take that long are taking longer. Like I spent a couple of days on a transition. I mean, it was just like maybe 16 measures of transition and it was 2 days, and at the end of the day I thought, why is this still I don't know, why is this still not done yet?
Yeah, everything's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the piece you're working on right now. Would you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, I'm really excited too, and also terrified because I haven't done anything quite like this before. So Suffrage Cantata will be about 12, well, like will be about 30 minutes of music, potentially. Although it's running long right now, so we'll see. I'm done with 2 movements and I have 17 minutes of music. So I think I may have to trim some things, but it'll be for treble chorus, for string quartet, percussion, and piano, and narration. I don't know why I can't say all those things cleanly at once. Sorry. But yeah, it'll be those forces. And there's a large consortium of several different choirs that went in to be part of this. And so it's really exciting. And I'll tell the sort of the journey. It means 72 years worth of history. You're trying to pack in snapshots, right? I can't obviously get it all. So I'm like, what are the most human stories? What are the most interesting stories? What are these amazing women that I wish that I had learned about in my history classes, but that I didn't, who helped the U.S. Women gain the right to vote? And so some pretty incredible stories, and hopefully when it's done, we'll do it justice. So
amazing. It's so exciting. It's a massive project, and it's for a group in LA, right?
So Vox Femina LA, Iris Levine, she was the springboard for it. She approached it and said, let's commission this. And then we joined up with Matt Workman at National Concerts and formed a broader consortium of people who are involved as well. So the Dallas Women's Chorus, like several other, there's a ton of different universities. I know Florida State, Michigan State, St. Olaf, Capital, like a bunch of groups have joined the consortium. So that's exciting. And someday it'll be all performed.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting, because the piece will have a life across the country and I'm sure beyond. And it's an American specific, historical moment, but I think it's relevant all over the world, of course.
Yeah,
so
it'll maybe less prominent in Canada, but yeah.
No, of course not.
But it tells a story. Yeah, I think I don't know. The longer I live, I think I just really like telling stories, and music is just one vehicle of doing that. So anyway.
Yeah. So, okay, switching to your other side of your work, you conduct everywhere. You do a lot of honor choirs and festivals, and we got to adjudicate together over a year ago, which was
So
just so
fun.
much fun. And how do you go about like programming from a conductor's perspective, and how do you feel your composer brain informs that, and maybe vice versa?
I think there's so many people who are much more artful at programming than myself. I have friends like Christy McMullen, who's at North Texas, who will just put these things together. And I'm like, how do you even have that vision? It's incredible, because I can be creative in certain ways, but programming for me, I tend to, for some reason, think really, I don't want to say formulaic, because I think that's the wrong word and it feels too rigid, but I tend to think about components, like I want to think about, is there going to be a piece that will stretch the ensemble?
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be a piece that will give us a moment to breathe, because we're pushing ourselves on if it's a pretty intense program? Are there going to be works that have texts or histories or stories attached to them, will sort of open a portal for deeper discussion and meaning making in that process? Am I thinking about who's being represented on the program? Are there women composers? Are there composers of color? Like those kinds of things I'm starting to think more and more about too. So I'm looking at those components, and then as to how the two inform each other, composing and conducting, that's kind of, I don't know, it's funny, because when I was first teaching and my conducting skills were not so great, I didn't think so much about conducting when I was composing. And then as I got better at conducting and was relying on that skill set more, I started to think about it. I started thinking about it a lot more. And now I very often will put things into my hands and say, oh, I'm going to group the beats differently because this feels this way or such. Yeah. You lay it out and you're like, why did I? And so I have some early pieces that's like, why did I write it that way? But then I think the flip side of that, which is probably less good, is that when you're a composer who also conducts, I tend to play probably too fast and loose with other people's directions, because you feel like, oh, well, they wrote that, but maybe they're fine with, I know several of my pieces have the wrong tempo markings. I will put it down because you feel, I don't know if you've experienced this in your composing, but you feel certain in the moment, you're really close to it and you're like, yeah, this feels totally right. And then when you actually get with an ensemble, sometimes you just have to find that right tempo where things start to fall into place and tune, and it moves and breathes and
it's flexible throughout the piece, maybe. And
you can't fully know that until you get in a moment, and then you want to switch it, and it's already in print, and oh well.
Right. Yeah. So as a conductor, you know that the composer may have had that experience as well, and you can take some liberties.
Yeah, but I don't know that I should, because every composer is so different. And there are some composers who are very, very adamant that this is the way it is. So I'm probably I'm probably going to be in trouble with some people. I don't know.
I don't think so. We had Charles Breffy on last week who just flat out says he changes notes. So
well,
you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah. What composers inspire you, or what kinds of music inspire you, or other art forms even? What kind of gets you going?
This is the hardest question to answer because it's so broad and there are so many things. I think I'm most readily inspired by variety, or by something that causes me to think, or something that is different than anything I've heard before, but not always. Sometimes you just want a gorgeous melody that tears your heart out. And sometimes we don't have to always be pushing the envelope. And we just want something beautiful that speaks. And so, I think back to when I was in undergrad, and I don't know about you, but I feel like those listening years when I was an undergraduate student were really formative in a way that what I listen to now I may learn things or grab things, but it's not this. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that, or is that a
Hmm.
weird thing to say? Yeah.
No, totally. You can't, it depends on so many factors. But yeah, no, I completely agree.
So, when I was an undergrad, I was listening to a lot of Stephen Sondheim, a lot of Z. Randall Stroop, Renee Clausen, Lauridsen. Like these were the voices that were in my ears and in the
Yeah.
choirs I was a part of, and in the musicals and those kinds of things. And so those were the voices that were with me in that formative time. But now, it's really rare that I listen to choral music. I don't know if I should say that, but like I love making choral music. I love writing choral music, and I do listen to it sometimes. But it's usually when a friend sends me something or there's a
Hmm.
project I'm interested in. When I'm cooking, I would rather put on Dolly Parton, or I would rather listen to some Laura Mvula, who's from the UK and doing some really neat things, or like
Ooh.
other artists, like finding genres that are different that maybe have elements that I might want to try and pull into my music, or just
Yeah.
to give my ears something new.
I'm actually so relieved to hear you say that because I've always been too afraid to say that. But
There we
but I
go.
completely agree. There's a really fantastic, with the exception of there's a fantastic CBC show on our national radio in Canada called Choral Concert every Sunday morning. It's like going to church, but she just has the most creative programming, Catherine Duncan on CBC, and a real range of like new work. Actually,
Yeah,
last week
yeah,
they did a world premiere on radio and it was all digitally recorded in sort of isolation and stuff. So I do try to tune into that when I can. But if I'm cooking or relaxing, it's all folk music or Appalachian stuff or Newfoundland stuff or
I
I have
love
a
it.
Evanescence as a guilty pleasure.
No
And
kidding.
so yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
good.
that lead
It's
singer's from my home state, like sang with one
Oh
of my
no way.
friends, who was her choir director. Yeah, how funny.
Oh no way.
Yeah,
Amy
yeah.
Lee. That's so
Yes,
cool.
that's really
Wow.
funny. Yeah, no, but that, and then yeah, Newfoundland folk music. How that would be great. I need to listen to some of that around the house.
I'll send you some.
I'll message you later for some groups.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, there's some great new stuff. It's like traditional, but keeping
but
tradition
yeah.
alive, which I think is what we try to do in choral music too. It has these like
Mhm.
deep roots for centuries, yet we're recreating it every week in our rehearsals and when you're creating new work. And so I find that inspiring.
Yeah, no,
Um,
Newfoundland in general is inspiring to me. It's a singing culture, a proud cult. I don't know. I just had the best time when I was there. I hope someday I go back, but yeah,
I hope so too.
yeah.
It's an amazing place. We'll have you over for
Okay,
sure.
great.
Hmm.
Sounds good.
Do you have a dream commission?
I have to find a new one because I'm working on it right now. Like my dream for the
Ah,
longest was I want to write an extended work for treble choruses, because there's so many treble choruses in the US. I don't know if it's the same in Canada, but I would say there are probably more treble
ton.
choirs than mixed choirs in the US. If you factor in children, women, community,
Yep.
university components, and how many treble voices are singing in the schools. So, and what do we have? We have the Britain Ceremony of Carols. We have the Holst things. There's just not a huge uh, opportunity there in terms of lengthier works. And so that's been a
Mm.
long dream. After I finish it, I don't know, I have to find a new one. So I
Yeah.
don't,
Oh, lucky you. That's wonderful.
yeah. So I'm going to be pondering that all week, actually, probably. Like, what's my new, yeah.
And who have been your favorite commissions in the past, or people to work with, or conductors or ensembles that have stood out to you as just wonderful collaborators?
Yeah. One of the coolest commissions came from the Allegro choirs of Kansas City, oddly enough, now that I live here all the time. But Christy was a friend, and I was teaching in Arkansas at the time, and she said, where she was struggling to find, they wanted unaccompanied, when you go to Europe for a tour and you're like, are we going to use this thing with a piano where you're hauling a keyboard into these cathedrals rather than I want to sing. So she said, if you'll write us, a set of two little psalm short things, we'll take you for free with us to Europe. Would you be interested in that? And I was like, yes. I mean, I was fresh out of college at that point. This is
Oh
brilliant.
wow.
So I wrote these two psalm settings, and we went to Austria and the Czech Republic. And that was really memorable, just to go and hear your music sung by these really great artists. And that collaboration has been lovely. They've commissioned lots of work over the years, and I've been able to pop in and we kind of reshape things as we hear it. And I think those kinds of collaborations are really special. And I felt that way with other conductors. Jeff Benson at San Jose State has commissioned a couple of things, and with a piece called Stomp on the Fire that we did. He was super, I loved it because he would come back to me and say, what do you think about this or this build? Like, could we add a descant here? Or could we?
Oh,
And it was great. And it never overstepped and it challenged me. And at the end, we had a stronger piece. So that's kind of fun.
yeah, real collaboration. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
And he never asked. I mean, it was never too big an ask. It always made sense. But it was fun to have a conductor who would sort of go back and forth with you on that.
Wow, really neat. It's so exciting to hear you talk about this because your music has become so iconic. I think especially in the treble world. I mean, every children's choir anywhere has sung your music, and it's so lyrical. It's so it always has that melody that you said earlier. It inspires you, and I've done it with my choirs in Vancouver, and it's just so much fun.
Well,
it's so beautiful. You're welcome.
Yeah, I think a lot of that. No, go ahead. You were going to say.
No, go ahead.
No, I feel like you were moving us on, but I was just going to say it's interesting that a lot of treble choirs commission, and I had to actually, when I switched to full-time composing and left academia, I had to start to be careful because you realize the commissions control your output. And then if all I took if I were just saying yes, then I would end up sometimes with, 9 treble pieces in a row and go, oh, I have to say no to some of these so that I don't just put out only treble. And so.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that as well. Like, that's a huge leap to leave, from what I understand, a full-time academic tenure track position. But you were getting work as a composer and as a guest conductor all over. How did you decide to make that leap? And how do you keep that balanced? Like, it's just, you're managing everything in your life. You're your own manager.
I have people who help me with that. I'm not so I have a great accountant and a bookkeeper who help me keep up with that piece of things.
Awesome.
Which is wonderful. And, actually was Jake Runestad, and Jake, we've talked about, I mean, I think he knows that I've told him several times, but we overlapped at an event in Iowa and had a drink and we're chatting. And he said, and I just said, tell me how you're doing this, because he's younger than I am and was full-time composing. And he just sort of looked confused and said, would you want to do this? And I said, I don't know, maybe. And he said, what are you scared of? And so I said, well, what if, people quit commissioning me or there's, and he said, do you have savings? And I said, yeah. And he goes, if they got low, could you get another job? And I said, well, probably. And he said, what else are you scared of? And he just kept shooting down all my fears and saying, if you wanted to do this, you totally could. And I loved teaching. And I knew that was a piece I could never give up. So I knew that the guest work was going to be really important. And I'm sort of learning right now what it's like not to have that teaching component, because I'm home and it's very isolating. But I went home and I crunched the numbers and I thought, I could do this. And it was tough to leave those students, particularly the grad students. That was a really brutal decision. But I knew it was the right call in order to have more space for a life, because between academia, the travel, and the composing, it just was sort of a hamster wheel. So it was a good call. And I don't know.
You're doing all the freelance stuff anyway, like on top of.
Right. And so, so now it's pretty great. But I am really glad that I saved before I left academia, because we're, sort of in the great unknown at the moment. So.
Yeah. We're all going to have a pandemic account for Oh my goodness. What are you most looking forward to when this is all done?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think we are all craving that feeling of being in the room, like singing next to someone, having those vibrations in your ear, like the overtones, the experience of being in proximity again and making music. I think that's the thing we're probably most hungry for. But you know what I'm also excited about is, and this sounds like my naive optimist talking, but she often speaks in times like this, in down times. But I really think already, first of all, you and I are having this conversation online that we would not be having if this were not
true.
Something's happening. We would both be busy in our own worlds. Yeah. And you've done that with Bruffy and with Carrington. And I have friends at universities who are planning collaborations where their graduate students can work with their undergraduate conductors online, where they're building and so I look forward to seeing how this time that's forcing us to go to all these uncomfortable places that we probably wouldn't choose to go to, how when we come out on the other side and we can be in person again, how those new connections inform our artistry. And I think it's going to be, more than it was before. I mean, I think the hard part is the interim, right? And processing that. But
yeah, figuring out how we're going to get back to seeing each other. But that is so optimistic. I love that. I'm going to keep that. Taking all of the creativity that's come out of this, because people have been, like you say, going outside the box and thinking, okay, if we can't do kind of the core exact thing which defines choral music, which is singing in the same room, then what else can we do? And like you say, hope those inform and make us more creative.
I mean, even socially, like I connected over Zoom with people who live so far away that I haven't in forever. I'm like, let's get together because we're all just home. So anyway.
Yeah. And what advice do you have for conductors and composers and young choral musicians who, I don't know, maybe are graduating high school right now or graduating their undergraduates, and this is sort of the new world? What can you tell them about your struggles and successes, and what would you leave with them?
I wish I had answers. I feel like anything I say is going to be naive because I'm not graduating at this moment where it's so crazy right now. And I know that there is a lot of that has to be discouraging. So I think the challenge for all of us right now, whether it's music or just in life in general, is to focus on what we can do rather than the things that aren't allowed to us at this moment or that we're missing. And so we can broaden our skill sets. And that's something that's always, I mean, maybe you can't, I just watched a beautiful conversation Joyce DiDonato was having with some students that she was supposed to have a master class with. And, one of the things she said to them was, so you can't sing over an orchestra right now, but you can work on your language. You can work on how well do you disappear into the aria when you're performing that character. Like you can work. And so I thought this is so true. So we can sharpen our musicianship and we can broaden our skill sets. And so if you're thinking you want to be a composer, I mean, that would be my advice anyway from the beginning, is what other things do you have? Because you want as many tools as possible, because I don't think I could have just leapt into full-time composing. I needed to be a teacher and a conductor, and all of those things inform how I compose. But that doesn't have to be your path. Maybe you sing opera on the side. Maybe you play piano. Maybe you have a band that you work with in town, or a jazz group or something like that. But what are these musical skills that you have that you can sharpen that are alongside this, so that you have multiple avenues and multiple revenue streams to support yourself while you're honing your compositional craft as well. And then personally, I would say to take care and to that balance matters. And that's something that I wonder if we've all, like, even in this situation where I'm staying home a lot more, I'm still realizing that just because I'm busy doesn't mean that that's why I struggle with balance. That balance is a struggle always, and that I'm obsessing about why can't I finish this transition, and I'm still working on it, when I'll be a lot better off if I go for an hour-long walk and then come back to this. And so taking care of our bodies, giving ourselves time, and not just obsessing purely about the music, I think. And then the final thing, and then I'm going to quit rambling, is I think I say this to a lot of I did a lot of Zooms with different groups, and the composers have questions about this kind of thing. And so I say this a lot more to middle school and high schoolers, but I think it's apt for college students and really for conductors of any age, is to to take care to guard your dreams. And so what these things are that we love, that we feel passionate about, we need those few close friends in our corner who will speak truth to us, but will do it in a loving way, and we'll do it in a way that makes us better, not in a way that crushes dreams. And I have dear friends that I love that I don't share my deepest, most creative ideas with, because they just operate in a different realm of this, and the way they approach feedback with me, I know sort of becomes soul crushing, even though they don't intend it. And so I think taking care of, like, here are the things that I want to achieve and that I'm excited about, and then finding those people who will cheerlead you, but in an honest way, I think is really important.
Wow. And you have those too? You
Yeah,
have
I
those
mean,
people?
I do. I have a few close friends. They know who they are. Like, I joke with them, like, and some of them I trust for different things. Like, I will talk through text choices. Like right now, Suffrage Cantata is crazy because I'm basically, it feels like a musical, in that I'm assembling narration and I'm trying to build story arcs. And so I have friends that will talk through that with. I have editor friends that I will send things to and say, help, Kurt Connect, who lives here in Kansas City. We share ideas back and forth. And he's so brilliant. And anyway, I'll send him movements and he'll send me back thoughts, and it always makes the piece stronger. So.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. What amazing advice.
I don't know if it's amazing advice. It just helped me because I am overly sensitive. Like, I have to be careful about who I let speak what to me, because I don't know.
Well, and what you let in, because
Yeah.
if there's a public review that's scathing, that's not necessarily the advice you should be listening to. But if you have people that you trust, then you can sort of open the gateway for those.
Yeah, my dad would always say, consider the source. My railroader father from Arkansas, but he would be like, consider the source, Andrea, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. So.
Oh, that's such great advice. Well, Andrea, this has been such a pleasure. We're going to go to some audience questions.
I can't believe we've already talked for this long. This is so
I know.
fun.
Oh, we could go on forever. We have a couple of Amadeus Choir members here. Oh, and I wanted to add, when you say, like, use this time to build your skills, I think that applies no matter where you are in your career.
Absolutely.
Like new graduates, I know the Amadeus Choir is planning a bunch of skills building stuff just for our own adult members.
And then think about when you get back together, like these new skills that we will have acquired. Anyway.
Hopefully we can all be like whatever area, if you're a level 2 in sight singing and a level 3 in vocal technique, and like everyone can just level up over the course of these however many months it's going to be. Okay, we have a question from Jane Gorman, who is an Amadeus Choir singer. How much? Yeah, Jean is here too.
Here,
I'll get to her question in a second. Jane says, how much has the pandemic influenced your compositions?
Well, actually, I started to say it hasn't, because I've had Suffrage Cantata on my plate and that's still on my plate, but that's not true. I actually took a commission. There have been a couple of commissions that have showed up, which is surprising. And one I took very last minute, but I thought I can do this, and but for Interlochen, for their Arts Academy, their conductor's doing canons with them, which I thought was really clever. And he commissioned a canon. So I wrote this little 4-part canon on a Sarah Teasdale text, and it's on Music Spoke now. But so that was kind of neat. And I wonder if I'm kind of brainstorming things like that, for when Suffrage Cantata is done. Like, is there going to be a greater need for canons, partner songs, or for aleatory type things where the tempo is not so important? I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, less pulse, more the soundscape kind of stuff. You never know.
Negate latency that way in technology.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Wow, canons are hard to write. Good on you.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be easier than it was.
That's like an exercise. Yeah, counterpoint.
It was fun.
We have a question from Jean Ashworth Bartle.
I know, I'm so excited she's here.
I'm just trying to find it to put
cool.
in. What are the different challenges you have discovered in writing a cappella music as opposed to a choral work accompanied by orchestra?
Well, I think for me, a cappella music this is bad to say. When I first started writing, I did everything by hand and at the piano, and it made me a better musician, and I really should still do that. But time dictates that I need to be in finale and I need to move these things along quicker. And so that's where I am now. But the exception is when I'm working on an a cappella piece, I will always get to a piano because I want to hear the overtones, and I feel like it's just different. And probably that's wise advice for any piece, but I think especially for unaccompanied things. And I also think about the role that the piano can play such a pivotal role. If you're sustaining something, the piano can give the subdivided energy that you need to make that move, or it can stagnate as well with the voices. You have that sort of ability to keep things moving. And so with an unaccompanied piece, I think more about that. I think, like, do I want to try and build in ways to give it this sense of movement, in some passing tones or some things in the other voice parts, so that I don't run that risk. Or maybe they need to work for it in this moment, and it's okay. But just I think a little bit more about that balance, I guess, if that makes sense.
Beautiful. Are you a pianist?
No. I can manage a rehearsal in 2 parts, and I can play my stuff really slow with as much rubato as I want, but no.
Right.
I wish
as a tool.
My life would be so much easier, I think.
Nah. You have enough outlets, I think.
Oh.
Keep enough on the go. Allison, our managing director, is just behind the scenes here, sent me a message. She says, do you think that popular music can inform classical music?
Well, I was going to say, I misunderstood it at first. Can popular music inform classical music? Yeah, why not? I mean, I think for us to assume classical is the be all end all, there's a certain arrogance in that. And I think, I've been taken by the few arrangements that I've done. So I did an arrangement of a Laura Mvula work called She, and it's really a powerful piece. And there's this repeated chorus of she don't stop, and this idea of just like moving toward this goal, and sitting down to try and transcribe her rhythms. I was like, anyone who mocks pop music has not tried to transcribe this rhythm. And then I would listen to her perform it live, and she would do a different melody and a different rhythm that night. It would still fit, but she would just switch it. And so I was having to make decisions between live recorded, this live version of, which one do I want to settle on? And, when the piece came out, I think that there's a vibe to it that feels, somewhat pop, but I don't think any choral person would be like, this is like doing some cheesy arrangement. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I feel like there can be really beautiful, artful, tasteful interplay between the two worlds. I think the challenge is when you don't honor the roots of each. I don't know if I'm making sense, because I'm really just talking, but I think when you have a situation where the classical world takes on a pop piece without really understanding it, or without really going to the source and trying to honor the root of it, then that's when you get weird stuff. And then I think it works. Well, I don't know if it works maybe it does work the other way. Like, we've heard bad pop renditions of classical things too. So,
right.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Do you think it's possible, or how do you think that choirs can capture some of that? Like, the thing about pop music, like you said, it's not the same every time it's performed necessarily. Although every time it's probably highly complex if you were to actually write down, transcribe the rhythms, like you're saying. How do you get that sense of spontaneity if you're in a rehearsal, say with a youth choir, doing this kind of piece where they've learned the rhythms so specifically? How do you try to open that up?
Yeah, well, if we're talking about like a clinic situation, I don't know how much you can. It depends on how open they are, right? Like, sometimes you just hit a wall, and sometimes they're really responsive to change. In the day-to-day, I think as a composer, we do it by giving conductors permission. So you write something in the score and say, even Laura, like I did in that one score, I put Laura varies the rhythm, varies the melody. So if your soloists choose to do that, that's totally fine, as long as they stay in tempo, and there's a representation of some sort. And so I think we as conductors sort of have to give ourselves permission sometimes too, to move with our groups in that direction, and to know that that's sort of the spirit of it, rather than to be that, the T must be on the end of 3 in this moment because this is what the note is on the page.
It's written. Right. Yeah. As long as we're doing it together, it's.
Yeah, we come collaboratively to a decision. For me anyway, but maybe I might be misspeaking. I'm not an expert on pop music.
You demonstrate a lot, like in a clinic situation. Would you sing it and have them sing it back?
Oh,
Do you
I
ever?
model all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely shape that phrase. Or if you're a conductor who doesn't feel comfortable, if you've got a student who can model the style that you're looking for really well, use the local models in your classroom too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Andrea, this is so fun. Thank you so much. We're getting just lovely comments here. Jean says her favorite hour of the week.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I am so inspired by her. I remember the Blue Book, the title's leaving me, but you know which one. It was Lifeline for, anyway, I just remember one of her books was very helpful to me when I was starting my early teaching. And so I'm grateful for this, although I feel a little bit cheated in that you've been asking all the questions. So maybe you and I will just have to Zoom sometime and have a glass and catch up where I can hear what's going on in your world too.
That would be lovely. It would be really lovely. Thank you so much, Andrea. Stay in touch and stay well.
You too.
And good luck with your writing. That's amazing.
You too. All right. Take care, Kathleen.
Thanks, Andrea.
Bye-bye.